Now let's get started with the 4 secrets. The first secret, a great way to look at the stabilizers is actually in these primitive postures. A lot of people come up with stabilization tests and things like that, and I don't necessarily think we should do that because there's one problem. The movement screen tells us that if there's a mobility problem, you got to establish mobility before you can adequately test stability. And I think that's where a lot of people have taken some stabilization exercises and turned them into stabilization tests, but there's too many tests, and now practicing, and you can tell us more about this, Lee, practicing a test so you can do the test better doesn't really reestablish function. It just sort of clouds the issue so it looks like you test better.
Yeah, that's the one thing you don't want to do. In education, one thing that you learn in elementary school, teachers learn, is you don't practice just to pass the test. You practice so you can function properly. We want to take that philosophy in exercise as well. And the one thing Gray was talking about, as far as looking at mobility first, if we get back into looking at growth and development, just like we mentioned earlier, what do babies do? Babies are very, very mobile initially. Then they learn to stabilize.
That's right. And what do? We come into fitness and rehab and injuries and orthopedics and sports injuries. And of course, we're adolescents, we're adults, we're teenagers. We've got bumps, bruises, strains, sprains, and we've got a lot of mileage on our chassis, and we have lost some mobility. And what does all the literature do? Hey, stabilize this, stabilize that. Not that it's not important, but you've got to realize you gave up your stability so you could basically move around something that doesn't move, which means you had to give up your stability to compensate effectively because the brain will always sacrifice quality of movement for quantity of movement. Now, tell us about this one. The second secret is the original operating system. If you've got a Windows computer and you're trying to load Mac software on it in the old days, it's not uptaking. And what is the original operating system of the human brain?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, where did we learn how to move? We learned how to move as infants, babies in our crib. The first 15 months we're in this world is where we upload all of our information on how to move. We roll, we crawl, we learn to stand, all in first 15 months. That's a tremendous amount of stabilization that's required, but it's built off of a hypermobile system. So where we really learn how to do this is a baby in a crib learning to just simply raise their head, look around. Where does that lead us to? Rolling. So this operating system that's the original built for movement was in motor development, motor learning, growth and development. We started meeting these milestones, these developmental milestones as far as rolling, standing, crawling, those certain things all happen early on. Well, we want to take that same system and test it now. Let's screen it, let's look to see how is it working properly again, and look at asymmetries, look at these things, look at how we originally learned how to move, and try to use that to our advantage now.
And I think one of the things that we do with kids when they reach these developmental milestones, we don't overanalyze their crawling or their rolling or their ability to stand. The fact that they're doing it establishes the platform for the next thing they're going to do. But if we brought sort of the current fitness mentality to watching kids move, what would we be doing? We'd be like correcting a little pronation here, and we'd be missing the miracle that's occurring before our eyes. So one of the things I think we learned from growth and development when we made the movement screen is the functional movement screen. Our 7-test functional movement screen does not measure movement. It rates and ranks movement and basically says, you've reached a fairly average developmental milestone with your squat, but you can't do a push-up. And even though you want to get back to squats in the gym, we're telling you right now, the best way to do that is to fix the push-up first. So the movement screen, in essence, was built around saying, everything's a developmental milestone. And if you skipped one to get to the other, you may be functioning at a adequate level here, but you know all those aches and pains, you know all those problems you have, you know the fact that you can't push it more than 3 days a week, well, that all leads back to the fact that you skipped a step.